Boom. Are we live? Let's do this. Hello and welcome to Truth and Transparency. Good afternoon. Welcome to the Transparency. Welcome to Truth and Transparency. Not sure if this is working.
Today is not a day to celebrate. With the arrest of Richard M. Allen of Delphi.
Take care, Miss Vargas. See you soon, Miss Vargas.
Paparazzi, stop.
Take a look at that right there. That is for tonight, dear alumni. I got you guys covered. Everything to do with that volleyball scandal. President Scott Green snatched that up. You know, because I'm alumni over here. Welcome to the Transparency. So that's you guys joining me for my prime time show tonight. It is about the University of Idaho and the women's volleyball team. And in fact, the women's volleyball old coach spoke out last night. So we're going to hear what she had to say, as well as talking about what the heck is going on with the volleyball. We got sexual harassment. We have harassment. We have probably assault and battery. But let's talk about it. They got a lot of problems over there in Idaho. But today's morning to mid-noon live is all about Delphi. I needed a couple days, guys, before I could even talk about this. It's just that pathetic. I can't even believe it. Yes, you need your Lana fix here. Here she is coming to save the day. In fact, we're going to also make a couple phone calls because you guys know that Indiana is like my neighbor. Sometimes I don't like to admit that, but other times I love to admit that Indiana is my neighbor. Like that time when, you know, oh, that's right. Alan's lawyers were reinstated, right? Yep. Go get them, Indiana. Now here she is. She gets reinstated. His lawyers get reinstated. Case is all supposed to be back. And then what happens? No hearing. And Gull says, boom, deny. Everything is not even going to be seen, heard, nothing. Moving right along. Everything that was on the docket to, as far as motions go for Richard Allen, in the way that his defense team was defending him, it's like, nope, it's all being denied without a hearing. So literally, she gets right back at it after you guys saw within 3 hours and 45 minutes, Baldwin and Rossi were not only just reinstated, period, they were reinstated as his public defenders. They're getting paid through the state. So with that said, what's going on? How does that not just scream like bias? How does it not just scream like, here, give him the hearing? You know what I mean? Make it look like you're not biased, you know? And so went ahead. I'm going to pull up, I have something I want to share with you guys. Yeah, what the hell's wrong with this woman? I don't know. Mod Squad says the woman just knows no bounds. She beats her own drum. How can you say that this is no longer about, it's not even about Richard Allen anymore. It's been totally not about the girls for a while, I feel like. And now all it is it's going to be just, this is what movies are made of. All right, this case is going to be made into one of the biggest blockbusters and whenever and whoever decides to write and do the movie around this real life event. But it has everything. Okay, this is what movies are made out of, and Gull wants her starting role. She wants to be a starter. She wants the spotlight on her. I mean, and how anybody can seriously sit there that is a judge and having the same position that she does, look at this and be like, what the fuck are you doing? You know, you're making all of us look like, you're making us look bad. You know, that's what I would be thinking. So welcome to the new American justice system, says New Orleans lady. Speaking of New America over there, I guess Trump taking care of business over there in New Hampshire. I don't know though. She definitely put the God complex into her job. Yeah. Or maybe she's just being blackmailed. Says, you know, if you're being blackmailed, I just think that you can make it look like you're not. Or if you're biased, make it look like you're not. So, you know, I think she's being blackmailed or threatened. And all of those could be definitely possible. And you would just think that maybe you would have a better poker face, I guess. I don't know. Let's see. Good morning, Lana mods. And hope you all are doing having a great day. Oh, fabulous. Always fabulous. What else says I don't give a fuck than denying motions without transparency of a hearing? I know. And you know what's crazy is that the freaking the upper said it was about a structural problem. Basically, Baldwin and Rossi get reinstated because of a structural error. Like, bitch, you erred. Okay. You erred because it was structurally wrong. You didn't have a hearing. You never, you can't oral argue anything without that hearing. And they make that known. And then here, she does the same fucking thing. It's like your 6-year-old, they make mistakes all the time and then you teach them, right? No, you're not going to do that again. Okay. But then it's when you deal with your 16-year-old and they do the same fucking thing. And you're like, what are you doing? Or like the person that you're dating. And you're just like, what the fuck, man? You just did the same thing. So either you're just not listening. And when you're talking about a grown ass adult, she knows better, right? She knows better. So there's a reason for this. And then you have to ask yourself, what's the reason? Is she just that fucking don't give a fuck biased? Is she being blackmailed? I mean, there has to be a reason at that point because you can't claim ignorance. You can't claim that she doesn't know any better. Like you were just told, you were just told and then you make the same mistake. So that's where my stance is on it, is that she knows better. So this is either all her, or if she's being blackmailed, then damn girl, she feels that she can't go to anybody, and then that's a horrible thing. That's a horrible thing if a judge is being blackmailed and they can't go to anybody, because that should just tell you how corrupt. I mean, go to the feds, right? I don't know what to tell you guys, but something that I did want to point out is this: her decision to do that. This doesn't stop there. Okay, it's not like, okay, she's just denying our motion. No. What do you think Baldwin and Rossi are gonna do? Just be like, okay, she's just denying our motion. Okay, on to the next. Do you know how many fucking pages are here? You know how much good ass shit's here? And it's going to be people like me, and it's going to be people that also do what I do, getting the good ass shit out of here and getting it the fuck on out to the public. Okay? Disseminating this to the point that we're getting the good parts out there. Get the good parts out. That's where I think us as investigative journalists, media, whatever you want to call me, just don't call me late for dinner. Oh, but it's going to be our job is to take the really good parts out of this and show it for what it is. Okay. That's my takeaway from it. And, so where are we at? Like, what's the next steps? What's the next moves? And before we get to like what's coming next is, that in the Karen Reed case, the feds got involved. The feds got involved for a very good reason, which was because of the corruption that they were claiming in the Karen Reed case, that these officers were basically, you guys should know about the Karen Reed case, right? I don't want to go too much in that, but the feds got involved to the point that 8 letters were just released, okay, where the district attorney is talking with the person that's in charge of this federal probe, this federal investigation into the investigation of Karen Reed, and if Karen Reed should even be facing and going to trial. And the feds look like they're going to step in, okay? The feds are going to step in and basically make their investigation known within a week or two, okay? So my question is when can the feds get involved with what's going on in Delphi? Okay. Can we start investigating an investigation? And people can say that this channel is a conspiracy channel or something like that. No. A conspiracy is a crime. So people need to stop using that word as it's such like a bad thing. If you conspire with other people, you're conspiring. That's a crime all in itself, even if the crime is not committed. You understand that? You can still go to fucking prison and jail for conspiring to commit a crime and not even going forward with it. Y'all know that, right? If not, now you do. So I have an article I'm going to share. Let's go back and look at this. Share my screen with all of you beautiful people. All right. Behind the American Guard, hardcore white supremacists. Okay. You guys are going to hear some familiar names in this. This was March 30th, 2017. Dozens of people showed up at the Indiana State House in Indianapolis on March 25th, 2017. Now, if you go through this big old fatty right here, we came across a bunch of names. Remember? And so, as I was briefing this, I saw, let's go to the part where, okay, right here we see the word Vinlanders, right? Isn't that what's all over in the, now start thinking back to when the murder was. What year the murders happened, okay? So here we go. Lana, don't this kind of shit make you a little paranoid? No, I don't do drugs. I don't get paranoid. I think people that do drugs get paranoid. That's just my take. I love my states with an I, though. Illinois, you got to put that on there, too. Thank you for being here, though. So obviously we see that in the Franks. Come and take it. How about those butcher knives right there? Talk about Idaho. Just poop right there. Some knives for you. Let's get to the good goods right here. The American Guard formed in Indiana in 2016. Okay. It went national in February of 2017. Say what? Say what? These dates are crazy when you look back, right? These dates are crazy. Let's take a look. Look. This is a voluntary community protection, activism, and service based around the ideals of American constitutional nationalism and the preservation of Western culture. The group would, it claimed, encourage Americans of any race, class, or faith to participate with us in these beliefs. Let's see. Sure, pop on. Oh, shit. We might have a guest. Wasn't really expecting it, but sure, why not? I like having random guests. It's almost like as fun as when I make my phone calls, you guys know. Well, let's keep scrolling. Look at this. Bill the Butcher, Bill the Butcher. You guys remember the Gangs of New York? Remember I told you this is in the movie. This is in for the making of a great movie. Unfortunately, because this is real life though, but we're gonna make a movie out of it. Well, I think a movie will be made. I did. I checked phone. Yeah, sure. Why not? Let's do it. Send you it. Yep. I'll email it to you. Let me see what email. Let's see. Settings. Invite. I'll Gmail it to you, sweetie. There you go. I just sent it, sugar tits. Tell Mod Sweat she wants to get back here for this. Might as well just bring on a guest. I always love a good guest, especially if they got some brains on them. All right, as I was saying, let's go right here. They start naming names. This is the picture I chose to use, I think, for today. Let's go a little further. Ready? Mickey McGinley. The white supremacist connections of the American Guard extend beyond the Villanders. The head of its Illinois chapter, Joshua Long, is a former member of the Hated, a racist skinhead group, and has attended events hosted by the Illinois-based, I'm not even going to say that, but where do we get some of the names like, let's go back up. Maybe it's a little further down, actually. Right there. Below, one can see member Patrick Westfall. I said, wow. So this was out. Think about this. They are investigating this case back in the day, right? This was out in March of 2017. So they would have been able to view this. Let me see if I can zoom in too. They would have been able to have this as part of their investigation. And remember, like this was being talked about back then, but it was buried. It was buried. But here it is. There he is, Patrick Westfall, right there. There's his name. He's all over this in Franks. He's all over the Franks. But we also see all over it. Johnny Messer is written in here. Fuck is he at? Look at these Ku Klux Klan, man. Look at this. I was just blown away by the whole article. And to see that Ohio got mentioned anywhere in here is just pathetic. Do you sleep? That Lana brain never stops. No, that Lana brain never stops. Mandy, did you get my message? Let me know that you got it. So anyways, I was just blown away by this, the date of it, the people that were mentioned here. Feel free to go ahead and I'll share the article in my community page. But when you're reading through it and you just see these names and you look up the people, I think what stood out for me is the date. In the beginning, and what they're talking about is the date. And here, this was March 30th, 2017. And then when you go and you compare what they were doing in the investigation at that time, and I got it, sent it. Okay. So where do we go from here? Is Gull going to, just no, we're not going to have any hearing. And then what can be done about this? If you actually remember when I was reading all of this, there were still some people that they had to depose, that they hadn't even deposed yet, but they were looking to still depose. But because of the time, they had to get this out. So if you go and you actually read the 136 pages again, and I'm going to do that and point out stuff that I want to point out, it would be the sections where you're going to talk to law enforcement. And that's where this is all going to come into play is, Rossi and Baldwin are preparing for, Richard Allen's life. And they're going with a third party culpability. So it wasn't that it was Richard Allen, okay? But we're going to go with, reasonable doubt, as well as there's a third party culpability defense. And they're going to point out who they believe responsible. And if you actually read the Franks, and I agree, this couldn't have been done by one person, okay? How does one person do this? And that was even thought about before Richard Allen was ever even arrested, okay? Is that how does one person do this? Then you get to actually see the crime scene, and then based on the crime scene, and then they go in depth about it, within this, and they talk about the crime scene. But it would be the movements. Okay. All right, cool. I'm going to be having this guest. He's making his coffee, and we'll jump on shortly. So I think for me, it's I'm going to go back to this part of it. Let me see here. I want to go to the page that I want. Okay. All right. Let me direct our attention back to good old Hector the projector. Hector, come on now. Give it up, Hector. Back to this part right here, which is, it's all about what one man could or couldn't do for me. Could one person, man, woman, okay, could they go ahead and do this in the time frame that they had? Okay, could they do this? And for me, it's a big fat no. For other people, maybe it's sure, yeah. But if you haven't read this, they break it on down. And like I said, when did Gull have the time to go ahead? Remember she said she hadn't read it yet? She said she hadn't even gotten through it yet back in October. So she must have been over the holidays sitting there. She said it was like 1,500 pages. Must have been hell of exhibits because I only have 136 pages. But she must have gotten through it maybe when she was on, up in the hospital. She said, bring me that. So here, this one man would have had to have been solely responsible for marching Abby and Libby down a steep hill. And then they go on and on and on and on in this Franks to talk about every part about it, that could this have been done by one person? And this is where I think you're going to be able to hook, line, and sink the jury. In my opinion, this is your nuts, is to show that not one person could do this. So how could Richard Allen, act alone? How could Richard Allen even be the person? And then if Richard Allen, in fact, did it, who did he do it with? Who's Richard Allen's boys that are like, yeah, let's go out and do this, So you're telling me Richard Allen has never mentioned, yeah, it's me and some other people this whole time, based off of all what we've seen, the conditions that he's been in. It's never slipped up that he did this with anybody. Don't you think that's kind of crazy? He's asked about his family being threatened. Or is my family okay? Is my family okay? And never once in any of this, in any of these recordings of all these calls that they would have, has Richard Allen mentioned, that he did this with other people. Richard Allen wasn't privy to this. They kept all of this when they were doing it. They didn't let Richard Allen know what they were doing. And it was to preserve, I believe, everything about it. It was to preserve the integrity behind everything that they did and all the work that went into this. And to see, I've seen a couple different Frank's written work, and this is by far. Now I can't even comment. Janelle, you can comment. You're right there, honey. This is by far the most in-depth Franks that I've ever seen. Now, I can't say that I've seen a bunch of them, but I've definitely seen a handful of them. And this is somebody that two lawyers that went above and beyond, again, in my opinion, for their clients. And here we are. How can anybody say that it's, what's the word I want to use? How do you not get a hearing? How do you not get a hearing? How do you not get a hearing if you want justice for the victims? How are not both sides just completely like blown away? How are both sides not upset? If I'm a parent of one of the girls, I am pissed. I'm upset because I want everything out there. I want every hearing to happen. I want to get who's responsible for hurting and murdering my child. And if it's multiple people, and if it's not just Richard Allen, okay, let's flush everybody out, because at the end of the day, we don't want this to happen to anybody else's kids, right? So I would think that as a parent, I would want this. And so it would upset me to see that the judge took it upon herself to just, as a parent, when can I get vocal about that? And it wouldn't be breaking, this gag. Can a parent get vocal? When should it be that these parents start getting vocal? Because handling things this way isn't going to, I don't believe, get justice for Abby and Libby. You don't get a hearing by embarrassing the judge in a state Supreme Court. I just think that I said it back a couple months ago when it was the O.J. Simpson case. You had Ito. He tried to take over and be the star. Now you have Gull. She's trying to take over and be the star of this. And we've lost. We have a man that's innocent until proven guilty, and we have two victims and their families. And that's all being like lost in this translation of who's going to throw their dick on the table and who has the bigger dick. That's what I see. And I'd have a huge problem if I was a parent and this is what I'm seeing. So that's what I see. I see that Abby and Libby aren't the forefront anymore. And it's, what's the judge going to do next? What can we expect from the judge? And I don't know how a judge is a referee. So think about a sporting event. Your referee isn't the fucking main show, isn't it's a ref. Your ref is just to be there to make sure that both sides are playing by the rules. And when fouls are committed, they're called out and things like that. But you have a judge who's the ref, who's completely just taken herself from being a ref to, okay, I'm Jerry Jones and I own the Dallas Cowboys. That's, I wanted to see some oral arguing by both sides. I want to see Nick. I think the judge is also bailing out Nick here in a sense that Nick isn't prepared to oral argue this. Nick isn't prepared to oral argue this motion. Okay. And so if the judge denies it without a hearing, she just bailed out Nick McClellan. Right. So I think that is part of it too, is that I wanted to see an oral argument. I wanted to see Nick and Rossi and Baldwin oral argue this. I want to see that. I want to see what Nick has to say. But here, he gets bailed out in a sense. In my opinion, he gets bailed out. Again, my opinion. Don't bring the Cowboys into this. How dare you? I just try to break it all down. Everybody can see. Everybody's got drama. It's a weak case, so he can't oral argue anything. Yeah, I would say that. But also, does it show his hand a little bit? You know, here we're seeing a little bit of the hand of the defense, but then we got nothing. We got nothing from the prosecution. So by Judge Gull denying this and not letting this proceed, who is this helping? Like, Nick. This is totally helping Nick. Nick just got saved by the bell. Okay. Nick's over there like, yeah, Gull, what can I do for you? My God. You know, that's how I look at it, because I think Baldwin and once they get their day, and maybe that's just not going to happen until trial, but is she going to not let any motion have a day in court? You know, what about the suppression of evidence? When's that, there's evidence that we believe should be suppressed. Is she just going to deny it? Nope, we're not even going to let it be heard. What, excuse me? So again, when does it... How could this not be looked at by her peers, Gull's peers, the judge's peers, and they're not over there scratching their heads saying, what in the fuck are you doing? We just told you that you didn't even have a hearing and you just went ahead and did something, and that it was structurally incorrect. And that's what we sided with so quickly, as in 3 hours and 45 minutes, that, good to see ya is what GTSY means. Good to see ya. So need some more. Z says, in my opinion, Gull is biased towards the prosecution, and at that point, there's no justice. Yeah, and I think the people that need to start speaking out, again, in my opinion, is the family. I think if the family starts saying, kind of like how Steve Gonsalves has said it, like he wants transparency, don't be doing these hidden off-camera crap, blah, blah, blah. Put it all out there. Put it in a courtroom. Don't hide anything. Put it all out there. Here, I think if the families were to be saying some of these things, then maybe we can start talking again about the victims. But I just feel like the victims are being completely, like, it's just, they're not even being mentioned anymore. It's Gull. It's the attorneys. We're forgetting what we're here for, which is 2 girls were murdered. So I guess it's a question of is when we can expect, or should we never expect it, that the families saying anything about it. Can they say anything about it? Do they want to say anything about it? Because do they want it to go to another trial? Like, is Richard Allen automatically going to get all these appeals that we're going to be doing this again? So it's going to be a very long road if she continues in this manner, in my opinion. But I think one can't look at this and say that one person did it. We have how can witnesses say that that's not their statement, and that in a probable cause affidavit, this officer switched what I said, and that not be taken serious by a judge. Everything is hearsay, guys, until, you actually go and you do your hearing, but things are brought forward on hearsay all the time, and then you figure it all out. But this is the most packed Franks I've ever seen against the most weak PCA I've ever seen. I don't understand. And sometimes family members, and I don't blame them, they don't read any of this stuff. You know that? Because it's so hard to read this stuff. They don't read this stuff. Some family people, they don't even know what's going on. Franks, who's Frank? They would say, like, what are you talking about? They don't, it's too hard to listen to it. It's too hard to read. But the media should be outraged. The media should be outraged. And if you don't do it right, we're going to be doing it all over again. So thank you there, Thriving Mama. Good morning. Keep up the great work. Prosecution knows that, well, I guess I'm going to have my guest now. Welcome to the main stage. What is up?
What's up, Lana? How are you?
Good. How are you? I was trying to keep it all quiet who was popping on here.
Oh, word. Well, yeah, Mandy hit me up. She's like, jump on. I was like, all right. I was in bed. So you're getting unshowered me, hat.
Hat.
Yeah.
Right.
Girl. Yeah. I mean, that's why they invented hats for bedhead, because my shit's for real.
My shit's
when I have
for real.
Bedhead, it's intense. So how are you? You guys diving into Delphi? The never-ending saga?
It's always never ending. Yes.
Oh man, I'm telling you, it's something.
Well, that's why I was like, get Bob over here. Let's. I got something I want to ask him about. Comparing something to the Karen Reed case in terms of. Okay, first question is, where can they go from here? I mean, this obviously I heard a lot of the stuff that you and Allie have been doing, by the way, phenomenal. Make sure you guys drop Bob's stuff in the chat as far as his podcast and YouTube. I know that you have that podcast as well.
Yeah, my podcast is actually my labor of love. I'm doing all of this because people should be listening to my podcast. I think it's the best true crime podcast there is, and I'm not afraid to say it. Like, and we have two things. It's like I have the serialized stuff where my dad was Gacy's lawyer. I had these tapes for 30 years of my dad interviewing Gacy, preparing him for trial. And then I finally made a podcast, but it's not like some Gacy fanboy shit. It's really, it's not, man. It's like, that's been done. It's like, I'm not digging into Gacy as much as I'm digging into the victims.
Yeah.
The investigation. What I uncovered was unbelievable. Like how they got him. It's like,
well, also wasn't your latest one talking about there might be more victims out there?
Yeah. So I'm working with Bill Dorsch, who's a former Chicago cop who's been obsessed with Gacy for, 20 years. And when I say obsessed, I mean obsessed. It's like he lives over in Europe now. He's actually flying in this week. Yeah, we're looking for more victims. We believe that we know where they are, and we're gonna do everything in our power to do the digs, because those kids deserve their names back. Families, whoever's left after 40 plus years, because law enforcement didn't do shit, deserve some kind of closure. And if we can provide it, then we're going to do everything in our power to do it. But yeah, and then our second season is Garcia. Like, if you like our content online, I'm
I
just
love your
telling you,
wife's fucking passion. I'm gonna say fuck
dude,
yeah.
she's the best. Like, and people are always like, Team Allie, sorry. I'm like, dude, I brought her on the fucking pod because I want everyone in the world to be Team Allie because she's the baddest bitch on the planet. I've known it for 20 plus years because she's been my woman. I'm on a live.
Is
Mom,
that
sleep.
her? What up,
No.
Ellie? Oh, okay.
That's my 17-year. No,
Oh, even
Allison's
better.
actually, she's working on, she's been torturing herself with a post-conviction relief act petition for like going on 3 weeks straight. I'm talking 17 hours a day on this thing, but it's, it's this guy's last shot at getting out, and we believe it's a wrongful conviction. So, she's doing her thing, so it's like I haven't been able to kind of like, I did a couple lives and I had to go on without her,
Yeah.
because I love to have her on, because like our thing is I translate her brilliance to lay people, you know what I'm saying? It's like
Yeah.
I let her kick the law knowledge, and then I try to make it so it's palatable for people to understand, because Allie is she's like a machine in terms of just digesting the law. Like, I mean, what makes her so unbelievably brilliant is not only her mind genetically, but the fact that she's like incredibly prepared.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like Allie just knows the law. She reads all the case law. She just knows her shit. You know what I mean? And it's like, I've been watching her and tried cases with her for 20 years as a woman who gives zero fucks.
Fuck yeah.
When she walks into a courtroom, she gives zero fucks if there's lawyers or judges that are demeaning her or trying to say, oh, hey, look, it's the, it's the little, she doesn't give a fuck.
I love it.
She's like, dude, she's my hero. I love her.
That's how that's how it should be. I love how
100%.
you go hard for her, and that's how it should be too.
Dude, I
I
will
love it.
fucking step in front of a train for her. Like, and
Right.
anybody who knows that for a fact. Like, I don't let like anybody who wants to come at Allison better come at me first.
Right.
But
Fuck
she'll be
yeah.
but I'll be holding her back because she ain't afraid. You know what I mean? It's like, it's like she'll be trying to crawl over me. It's really me just trying to hold her back. But so we all stay out of jail.
Here you go.
Yeah. No, so yeah, but our YouTube is Defense Diaries podcast, and we put on some pretty good content, and we stick with the facts. Like, I just don't dive into like speculative shit. That's not really our game. We kind of stick with the legal side of it. That's not to say that I don't talk about my opinion, but if I want to talk about my opinion on a case, I make it very clear that that's my opinion and it's not facts.
100.
You know what I'm saying? There's a lot of creators and people on Twitter that do and say things where they blur that line, and I don't like it. You know what I mean? So, and I don't do it. So it's one of those things. Oh, she just crawled out of bed. She's such a sweetie. Everybody's fangirling you. What do you want me to tell you?
That's
I'm fangirling you myself. So, yeah, but it's, like, that's our thing. We go just facts. And another thing is, like, I encourage people to come on that disagree with us.
Yeah.
Like, I've got a position on Delphi and what's been going on from the legal side of it.
So why don't you state that? I would love to know what your position is on this. Well, especially just on the recent, like the quick denial. No, like we're not even going to go to have a hearing, even after what she was just basically told by her superiors. So the quick, just we're not even going to have a hearing.
I felt probably the exact same way that you did. Like, what the fuck are you doing? It's like we're trying to get the, like, I think we all agree on one thing, and it's we want justice for the girls. And I think we all also agree, because if you don't, you're just wrong, that the only way the girls get justice is if they have the right person in custody and the right person is convicted. And if he is the right guy, which I don't think that he is, but I could be wrong, and I'm just basing that on my experience of dealing with probable cause affidavits, and this concept that they don't put their best foot forward in those things is just incorrect. They do. That's always the state's first salvo. That's what they can get out to the public and have the world look at and digest while the trial's pending. And they're going to put their best case forward because that creates the public perception of guilt, and it becomes like a confirmation bias thing with them. And in this case, it was unusual in the sense that the defense didn't stand idly by, which they typically do, because people need to understand probable cause affidavits in a case where somebody hasn't been indicted by a grand jury and you see these things drop, like typically just kind of go out to the public as all the public will learn about. And what people don't understand is that's just the state's theory of the case.
Yeah.
That's how they've interpreted the evidence, how law enforcement and the prosecutor have interpreted the evidence. And that's all it is, because the prosecutor wasn't there when the crime wasn't committed. Law enforcement wasn't there when the crime wasn't committed. So like, they don't know, this is what they think happened. So like when Baldwin and Rosie first did the presser and they dropped that press release, which infuriated Gull, to even the playing field, really, I mean, that's really like people losing their minds. Yeah. I mean, like over what the state does on every single case.
Yeah. They had 5 or 6 years to speak to the public. Right. And then here they speak to the public once. And
launched, gagged up. Yeah, like the world comes to an end.
Are the families gagged? Are the parents gagged?
From what I understand, yeah, which is bizarre.
Okay.
Like I know the Patties, like I because I know Becky Patty like wants to be talking. From what I've heard from a lot of people that they'd like to be talking, and frankly, I would love to talk to the families, because when I sit there and look at this case and love or hate the memo, in terms of what it was and what it brought to the table. If I had the misfortune of being in their shoes, which I can't even fathom, to be honest, I couldn't. I have 4 kids and I couldn't fathom losing one of them like that. I can't even process it, really. You know what I mean? It's like, it's so surreal that I couldn't even like begin to understand what it would feel like. But they put all their faith into law enforcement. Every victim's family does. When law enforcement comes to them and says, we got the guy, and then the prosecutor doubles down and said, this is the dude, or this is the girl, whatever the case may be. I use guy genderlessly. Like, it's always like, he's the guy. They got the guy. Is that the guy?
They got him.
So so like, but they put all their faith into what law enforcement and the prosecution is saying to them. Like, they have no choice but to do that. And then when you're sitting there as the families of victims and this thing drops, and again, whether you love it or you hate it, when they hear about 3 other cops that continued to investigate into a different theory, into alternate suspects for months and months and months, who click, and there were half statements being put out there by the murder sheet, and then they corrected it and put the full statement out, where Click is saying no one in law enforcement thinks it was a ritualistic killing. However, which I think is true. Like, right. But they do think that somebody else did it. You know what I mean? Like that. They believe that somebody else is responsible. When Click is sending an email to McClellan saying, all right, like, what am I missing here, dude? Like, why is this guy under arrest? Did you read the report? Did you see?
Was this given to you? Didn't he even think that it wasn't given it to him? But then he did it himself to make sure.
It's crazy. Totally. Yeah.
He's like, I personally gave it to you.
And if I'm the families, it's giving me serious pause, just knowing that, because frankly, the reality is if this thing goes to trial and Richard Allen is not convicted because they don't have the evidence to get him on beyond a reasonable doubt, which is a much higher standard probable cause affidavit. Yeah. And, I mean, Lana, think about how many cases that you can, like, just even off the top of your head, think of where it's high profile, they go to trial, the person's acquitted, and then they arrest somebody else. I honestly cannot.
It doesn't happen. Yeah, it
Does
doesn't
not
happen.
happen. And it doesn't happen because they stopped investigating into anybody else. And, so there is no
Do you think it's a
further
pride thing
investigation.
too with that? Do you think it's like a pride thing? What they're like, no, we had the
100%.
right person. We're just going to blame the jury. They
Exactly.
didn't get it right.
I think it's a combination of both. I 100% think that that's definitely part of the equation always from the cops and the prosecutor. It's like they have a very hard time walking back that they fucked up. You know what I mean? It's
Okay.
just, it's
Yeah,
a
it's just
very
yeah.
difficult thing for them to do. And,
And see, why can't they just say that maybe like a witness lied to them? You,
anything, or we got it wrong. We're
yeah.
so sorry. We've
I'm
done
just saying,
everything
if your pride so much, then why not just like kind of like reverse psychology and just say, well, we had all these witnesses lie to us, and that's why we went the wrong way. Use something to
exactly
twist it. If you don't want to say we did,
right.
if you can't say, hey, I was wrong or we fucked up, then blame it on the witnesses. Blame it on something else to make it
Whoever.
right. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. Whatever it is, because at the end of the day, their egos don't fucking matter. What
Right.
matters is getting justice for the victims. Like that takes precedent over everything. You
Yeah.
know
We
what I
stopped
mean?
hearing about the victims, I
And
feel
and
like right
I'll tell
now.
you what, people are gonna have a short memory as to the first fuck up if they actually find the right person or persons and get them convicted. Like that
Yeah.
memory of the initial fuck up will still be there, but in terms of people like really being like, oh man, it'll be a short memory though. People will be like, all right,
Yeah.
they messed up the first one, but they kept at it, they owned it,
Mhm.
and then they got the right person. They persevered over, you know what I
Mhm.
mean? And it just never
Yeah.
happens, man. And it's like I don't get it. I don't, it's so
Uh,
frustrating,
do you what's your take on this? So, do you believe okay, so I don't believe that Nick was remotely prepared to oral argue anything to do with this, okay? And so do you
No
believe
way.
at all that Gull could have said to take one out of Nick's hands to like help him out here, hey, if we don't have a hearing, then he doesn't get exposed for being, not prepared to oral argue this. Do you think that she
Oh,
did it
you
all
mean
for because of
for
him?
you mean for the denial order?
Yeah, yeah.
The
like
great the
like
great
no
denial
hearing.
order of
Yeah.
2024. No hearing on anything. No hearing
We're
on Franks, no
just
hearing
a
on the ballistics, no hearing on the motion to suppress. I would not doubt it, because like my theory in terms of, and some may consider it to be controversial. I just consider it to be logical.
I get
Um,
I like logic.
when the leak happens, and when we then find out when they are able to bully her into making everything public, starting with that transcript of what happened in court on the 19th, in addition
Mhm.
to all the emails that went back and forth and in the discussion of the phone calls. And when it became apparent to me and to the world, really, if you were paying attention, that they were ready to go to trial, that they were making, as soon as they got Gull to put the discovery deadline in place on November 1st, so that they knew that they were getting everything that McClelland was intending on bringing to trial, and they had it, that they felt comfortable enough to move forward and put the speedy demand in, which makes
Mhm.
sense. If people don't understand how speedy works, you can't make a speedy demand if you still have pending discovery. You know what I
Yep.
mean? So their move, like everything they did was very strategic. It wasn't haphazard. People being like, "Oh, they said on the speedies in all, since August when Richard out." I'm like, "Yeah, they didn't have all the discovery. You can't, as a defense attorney, it's a dangerous gambit to go on a speedy for both sides. It's
Okay,
not
so wait,
just the state."
so
Yeah.
then I have a question. If you're still talking about discovery and you don't have it all, you're saying that your speedy doesn't kick in yet? Or that it would still be paused or
No, if they have if they've got an outstanding discovery that's still out there, like if Nick
okay.
hasn't, if he hasn't told both the defense and the court that discovery's completed, I've given him everything that I had.
Okay.
At that point, the defense knows that there's still outstanding discovery. And remember, in this case, McClelland was slow playing what the defense considers to be the exculpatory evidence, meaning all the stuff with Fields and Holder and all those other guys. The alternate suspect stuff came very, very late, almost a year in. We're
Okay.
talking
Yeah.
September, they start getting that stuff. So, when strategically they're thinking, all right, there's no way in hell McClelland is ready to move forward on this trial.
Nope.
No way. There's
100.
zero chance that he's ready. He at that point he didn't have Luttrell. He was flying solo on this thing, and as somebody who's tried many cases, and we've tried cases like this that are huge and overwhelming, the amount of work that you have to do, there is a 0% chance that McClelland was going to be ready in the way that he would want to be ready for this trial. Would he answer the bell on January 8th? Yeah, he would have, because he would have had no choice. Otherwise, Allen walks. There is no, with the speedy demand, that's the result. If you don't start trial and there's been no delays that can be counted against the defendant, which is one of your questions, then that date is stone. You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
when that happens, like, they're of the mindset, okay, they got the date, and this is my whole theory on what happens with this leak. And if you look at the timing of the leaks, and then when things happen right after the leaks, it's so, to me, it's just so evident. So we know that Rosie and Baldwin tell both the judge and McClelland that they are prepared, that they're making the speedy demand, and that they're sticking to that trial date of January 8th, that's when they're ready to go to trial. Both McClelland and Gull, who had not litigated anything thus far, she hadn't set hearings for anything on anything of substance. I mean, all they had was the safekeeping stuff, nothing of substance. They both shit their pants, because 2 months in terms of prepping for a trial like this is the blink of an eye. Like, as I sat here as an observer of the case, and I'm like, there's no way they're going to trial January 8th. There's just way too much shit to do. And I'm basing that on experience, unless they're really trying to catch the state with their pants down, which obviously we know, even argued it in the Supreme Court, that was part of their strategy, that they were ready. They were conducting all their deps, with all the law enforcement guys. They were preparing the case, and they were going to be, this wasn't just a move. So when it turns out that this leak happens, and Gull, to me, the easiest way for her to get a delay on this trial is to get rid of those two lawyers. It helps McClelland out. It helps 100. Her out. And, I mean,
that's exactly what it did.
It's exactly what it did. And the timing of it cannot be ignored. You just cannot deny the timing of it, because it worked out perfectly for her. And more importantly, it worked out. Am I suggesting in any way, shape, or form that like her and McClelland were in cahoots? No, I'm not at all. I don't think any of that took place. I think that she realizes that McClelland's not ready. She realizes that she's not going to work over the holidays and like kill herself for the next 2 months getting this thing prepared for trial, in terms of everything that has to take place before a trial happens. All the motions have to be litigated. They have to be ruled upon. There's going to be more motions. There's going to be more motions in limine. Like, all the stuff that has to happen in order for a trial to happen had to happen in 60 days, which, if you're preparing for trial, is the blink of an eye.
Yeah, 100.
So to me, that was her perfect out, like, to get rid of these two guys, because she knew that new counsel was obviously going to need at least a year to get ready for the case. So, like, that's just, no one's ever going to change my opinion on that. And it's my personal
I'm right with you
opinion.
on it. 100. That was her play. That was their only move. They all knew that. I would never say that anybody's in cahoots as far as with,
right,
publicly, but they've been sure.
Totally.
But I think where my question, I guess, right here is that, okay, since they went ahead and got reinstated, and they're back as not just, they're his counsel, but they are back in their role that they should have been, which is appointed. They should be getting paid, and not because they didn't do anything. Now, can you argue that October 24th date was only in place because they were going to need those other attorneys, but now that they don't, can there be an argument to say that can be pushed up back to, let's even say just May?
In terms of
that October date. That October date, the only reason that October date was given was because they were going to need these new attorneys. Well, they obviously go appeal it, they win.
Yeah. If you're asking me if they can file a 70-day speedy, yes, they
Yeah.
absolutely can, without
Okay. That's what
question.
I'm
It's like
asking.
the real, yeah, totally. And the more interesting thing about it is, which is one of the things that surprised me the most about Gull, like dropping that order with like just no legal analysis, no real, like when you have the Supreme Court saying, look, counsels, we've looked at this record and it's a shambles. This record
Mhm.
is ridiculous. And the hearing or non-hearing that took place removing these guys is a perfect example of what not to do in this case moving forward. And then she doubles down and does it again
Yeah.
because the fact of
It's
the matter is
actually
that
wrong.
she would have denied all those motions anyway. She may have denied a Frank's hearing. That's fine. But you do it on the record, because at this point, we have to be making a clearer record for the appellate case if he's convicted. And she just didn't do it. Like, you read her order and it's a one-pager where she's denying 3 substantive motions with no case law cited, the wrong
Yeah.
standard as far as the Franks, and it's like, man, I just don't know what she was doing with it at all,
So, when putting this, you want to have a clear record. Would you then say that all you'd want to do is let it come forward, have your date to have your hearing, and let it be heard, and then you go ahead and just deny it after it's heard, right? Is that your record?
Yeah, typically, but like you'll typically get a judge say, okay, this is the law I'm relying on. These are the cases that I'm relying on
Yeah.
in terms of denying your motion, to make an appellate record, because remember, that's all the appellate court's looking at is the record,
So, and
in
then
terms of what
Nick would have to speak on that record, right? Because he's
100%. I mean, he'd have to
yeah.
argue
So
it.
exactly. So, him arguing it would probably show the hand of the prosecution a little bit. And so this also stopped the hand of a prosecution showing a little bit of what they had, or
100%. If they have more, yeah. Like I was so excited in June when it turned out to be that safekeeping hearing, man. I was like, I was rolling into Delphi. I'm like, woo! It's a suppression hearing. We're finally get to see if they have anything more.
Because
And
you've been
then,
boots on the ground, so yeah,
boots
you
on the
went.
ground. And to my shock and like surprise, it just turned out the suppression hearings kicked. And that was actually kicked by the defense. I came to find out after the fact, but it was one of those things where I was so excited to hear, because they would have had to put more out there. We would have learned what they had, if anything, which has been my entire thing with this case. It's like, look, the investigation into the defendants and arrestees intensifies massively after the arrest. They continue. It's when they have the most access to the defendant. They're going to have it's when they got all of his electronics. And then when we look at, because with the whole thing where he adds the 2 intentional murder charges the same day that the Supreme Court hearings going on, people are like, oh, what is this shit? And like, I was one of them. Oh, and then it's like, hey, look at me. Look at me. We're still trying this thing, And look, we're going for it. And when you try to figure out, because felony murder is just much easier to prove in terms of they don't have to prove the underlying murder that Alan committed. That all they had to prove was that he committed the kidnapping, and as a result of that kidnapping, the girls ended up perished. So that, it's a much different case. With the intentional murder, they actually have to prove that he committed the murder as well. So when you kind of like break it down like that, the way that I thought when they went with the felony murder initially, it signified to any defense attorney out there that, look, they don't have a strong case as to intentional murder. They don't have any evidence that he actually committed it, which is why they were saying, we're keeping the tip line open. We think that there might be more people involved.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That was their mindset. And they made that very public.
Yeah. At the press conference, they were saying that as well.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying, and it was McClelland himself saying it. So, when you add this thing, and I think that the thinking was that when they got him under arrest, that they were going to find shit in his electronics, that they were going to find the connection of him drawing the girls out to the bridge one way or another, that it was going to exist.
Do you really think that they thought that?
Yes.
Versus that they, guess because I don't think they thought they were going to find anything more or less. Because I believe that they knew that they had the wrong guy when they did it from jump. But that's just me.
I mean,
So that's why when I asked, I mean, I'm just truly asking. So
there's a compelling argument.
Guys thought that he was involved in some capacity. Then,
I mean, I think I would hope so,
because
at least in some capacity, like, just outright, flat out arrest a guy that they didn't think really committed the crime in order to get Liggett elected, is such a terrifying prospect that, like, I have a hard time believing that it could be true, but that doesn't mean that it's not. You certainly can't ignore the fact, and they bring it up in the memo. There's a pending election. Liggett wants to get elected, and an arrest in this case pretty much shoes that in, So, I mean, that's out there, and it's a fact. You know what I mean? And it can't, like, the defense thought enough of it to put it into, the memo, and obviously that pissed a bunch of people off.
Oh, yeah.
The mere suggestion of it, but
what do you think about? For me, the most compelling part of, obviously all of this was, and it's hard to read because it's the whole fact of, like, you want me to believe that one person did this, so they went ahead and they broke it all down. I mean, how many hours do you think it took? That's our thing. You're a lawyer. You know how much time goes into this to write this and do this. How much time went into this? Into the Franks.
100 hours, 100+ hours, easily.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
I would say easy, no? I would think like in the thousands, but that's just me. I would think that this took 1,000 man hours.
Well, if you're computing the time that it took them to dig through all the discovery as it came in, yeah. I mean, they're on record that they'd worked 1,000 hours in the case, which ultimately they're getting paid from the public coffers, so they have to turn in the time, so they're keeping track of the time. They're not guesstimating on it, and they, at that point in time when they were removed, they had said that they had worked 1,000 hours on the case, which I believe completely. And that memo is evidence of it. Like, you can't prepare a memo like that in a couple of days. That thing gets pounded out, and it's like that thing where, when Baldwin's getting ready to file it at 2 a.m, when they finally get it done and they've proofed it the last time and they know they're sending it out to the world and they're freaking the fuck out. It's like Allie and I have filed motions like this where nothing to this extent, because, like, I never seen anything. Like, I loved it. I loved
I think it's fucking amazing. I think this was fucking tits. I think that
I do too.
These aren't some new lawyers trying to make a name for themselves.
Yeah.
These are veterans, in my opinion, and they have no reason to lie. They have no reason to go and, we got 2 little girls that were murdered. Why in the world would you ever, try to pull a stunt in a case like this? I don't see it. I see integrity from those 2 gentlemen, and I loved it when he walked by and he said, "All right, journalists, like, this is your time to shine. Like, this is what you're supposed to go out there and do." And I thought that was fucking awesome. I thought that was perfectly said. It was simple. It was short, sweet, but it was powerful. And I'm glad that they're back at the helm. And I just think that Gull keeps on saving Nick's ass, that he doesn't have to get out there and oral argue anything. And because I don't think Nick is that type of an attorney. I mean, it's plea deal. He's not. He's not a trial attorney.
He's never tried a murder, and he certainly hasn't tried a case like this. I mean, and when you look at it, like, Luttrell didn't get brought in until October of this year. Who's going to be his second chair? Who does have, according to Hennessy, when I had Hennessy on my channel, right afterwards, because he was super pissed about Murder Sheet, like, putting him on blast, and I'm like, this guy's like a legend, like a legendary criminal defense attorney out there, and he's like.
Murder Sheet wants Keegan Kline involved with this so bad. That's where their bias comes in there. It's just like,
oh man, but like, like I don't know what their deal is, but my whole thing has always been with them, like, they're pro-state, but they won't admit it, like, which is fine. You're allowed to be pro-state. Like, my friends, the prosecutors, are very much pro-state. They're very much. Alan's the right guy, that they have so much evidence. This is
But
insane. I don't know. You know what I mean? But
yeah,
they
but if you're
admit it.
pro, how can you be pro state but not be pro constitution? How can you not be pro innocent until proven guilty? That to
Thank
me
you.
is just a fucking clash. Like that doesn't make any logical sense
Thank
to
you.
me. If
Thank
you're
you.
if you believe in the process, then you believe in all of it. You can't pick and choose what
Exactly.
you're gonna be. You know, I believe in
I
innocent until
feel like
proven
I'm
guilty all
playing a
day.
recording of myself right now when I talk.
That's why I
So
was like, fuck yeah, get Bob over here.
yeah.
Two like-minded logical fucks over here.
Indeed. Yeah, like so moving forward.
Yeah, can the
Like,
feds get involved? Can they, in the Karen Reed case, it was like, okay, they got involved because of the investigation. It was flawed, allegedly, and that, railroaded, set up, framed, all that crap.
yep.
If Gull's not even going to play and make it look like she's not biased, I mean, how can her peers, that's what I was saying actually before you got on, how do her peers seriously look and be like, Gull, I mean, are you 6 years old? Like your parents just told you what you can and can't do. And then
Right.
after they tell you and reprimand you for it, then you go out there and you make the same mistake. That's not, in my opinion, that's not a mistake. You know what you can and can't do. You know what you should and shouldn't do. When is it, when
It's
does it become
insane.
obvious that
Like, well,
she's just,
like if it's not at this point, I don't know when it ever is. But what, like, the feds aren't going to get involved in terms of the judicial process. You know what I'm saying? It's a state case. They're not gonna pull it and bring it into federal court. In terms of the feds coming in to investigate, I mean, they had feds involved, like a couple. You
yeah,
know
like,
what I mean?
well,
It's
you mean
like,
in the original investigation?
yeah,
Yeah.
in terms of, I mean, if we're thinking that it's gotten to the point where it's super nefarious, like,
Yeah.
and like, I just throw it out as a concept, but when I look at the leaks and I look at who benefited the most
Yeah.
from the leaks,
It's not the defense.
it surely wasn't Baldwin, Rosie, and Allen.
Nick is the one who's benefited from every leak. And
I
that's
don't
the other
know.
part about those stupid emails. Why would a prosecutor be involved in investigating anything? When he's writing, I was up till 4:00 in the morning and I've been doing this for the past 4 days. Well, that's not your job, right? That's your investigator's job. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but you're the prosecutor. You have a murder case. You would put that in the hands of your, police department, state police, whoever, you wanted to, be investigating. But to sit here and say that you lost precious time with dealing with a murder case, well, that's your fault.
Right.
That was what you chose to do with your time,
Right.
which tells me what you do with your time, and
Right.
that you're dollar dumb and penny wise, and that's your
on,
fault.
Right. That's on you, Nick. Like, you're not
Yeah.
a cop, bro. Like, that's not your role, man, at all.
And see, wouldn't that be the judge's response? That's how I would respond. Be like,
A normal judge, yeah. But like, look, I've been doing this so long, and like Alice and I have just been beaten. Like, judges, they typically come from the prosecutor track. Like, many of them are former prosecutors. Very
they are.
few are defense attorneys, and the ones that are defense bar people, turn out to sometimes be the biggest assholes that there are, because they're trying to, make sure that they don't come off as biased towards the defense bar, they overcompensate, and they're even rougher on defense attorneys than stateside judges, but it's like she's so evident, and I mean, and and like every lawyer knows in front of judges that they practice all the time, whether they're pro state or pro defense. And all I ever ask,
why can't we be pro the people? How about that? I hate when people say
Thank
I'm pro
you.
defense. I
Follow
am
the
pro
law.
the people, man.
That's all I care. Is like, follow the law. I don't care.
Yeah, like, I am not pro defense and I'm not pro prosecutor. I am pro you, me, citizens, people. Like, what are our rights?
That is, and what I'm always preaching, and like my entire platform is built on the concept that like us, defense attorneys are the ones who defend the principles of the Constitution. The prosecution and the cops are the government. Make no bones about it. The Constitution is a document that was drafted in order to tell the government what they cannot do to us, the citizens, and the last line of defense in terms of protecting that document are defense attorneys. If we're not filing the motions to suppress and calling the cops out on their bullshit and violations of 4th, 5th, 6th Amendment rights, then those rights go away because it's like there is no one to protect it. So it's like people don't get that. Like I used to get so furious when people be like, "Oh, the guy got off on a technicality." I'm like, no, I got off because the cops violated the constitutional rights of that defendant.
And I hate the word "got off." I hate that fucking word "got off." Like
it's worse. It's
no,
worse.
you're violating people's rights. We're not even to the getting off part yet. Like there is no that
What
wouldn't even happen if you don't do that. You know,
Oh, sorry. Yeah, no, I mean, 100%, man. You know, and it's like people just like I always try to make clear that if we're not filing those motions, that law enforcement is then able to do whatever the fuck they want, and we're living in a much different country, you know. So like that case where we go in and we show and meet our burden that they violated and it was an unconstitutional search or seizure, and then the judge agrees, and then they end up suppressing the evidence, which is typically the key piece of evidence in the case, and that case goes away. People are screaming and yelling at the defense attorney. I'm like, nah, like point your anger at the person that you should be, or the agency, which is the law enforcement, which violated the Constitution. If they do their job by the book, we don't have a motion to file. And, you know, and it's like with those teeth, with that harsh punishment of losing that evidence, that is what stops them from violating people's constitutional rights, because they know that there's going to be an end game for them that's going to result in a super pissed off prosecutor, a super pissed off judge, and a super pissed off victim's family if it's a case that involves a victim, because they're not getting justice because the cops cheated. So like, I mean, that's why we do what we do. And it's like we're the only ones that do it as defense attorneys. It sure the hell isn't prosecutors. Like, you know, I know that the if you read a caption for the case, it says the people of the state, but trust me, it's the defense attorneys who you know really represent the citizens of this country and the Constitution. So there's my soapbox.
No, I love it.
Yeah,
I fucking love it. That's why, like that's why I love Scott Roeder. That's my boy. He's like, Lana, I've done so many cases for the police. I do cases for the defense. It's the evidence is the evidence. And that's, I mean, I love to see that. I love when someone can say like, yep, I've done stuff in the work of this. I've done stuff in the work of that. You know, I can't be bought, whatever it is. And I follow the evidence. And that's just, unfortunately, you got two girls. And I don't see that. I see that as Judge Gull being like Judge Ito.
Right.
You know,
God, lost control of the ship, man, like steering rudderless, floating. Like, you know, I watched that trial because I'm old enough. I watched it like when I was in college, and it was appointment television, and I'd never seen a judge lose control of a case like that.
How about when the one woman was like, I don't have my glasses, and then they're asking, Johnny Cochran is asking, does anybody here have any cheaters or readers, or, you know, and here going up to the witness here, do these ones work? Do these ones work? Okay. Yeah, no, that'll work. Okay. Yeah. And I was rolling, cause I'm like, you forget all these little things that took place in that courtroom. Like, I was just like,
it's so crazy. It was such like, I had never, you know, and that was really,
people stopped watching General Hospital because that was soap opera.
It was the real life soap opera.
Oh,
you know?
For sure.
It doesn't get any more high drama than that. It was like
9 months,
case,
right? God. 9 months. It was, you know,
the whole Furman thing. Like, it was just never ending with like that case. And it was brilliantly tried. You know, I mean, the fact of the matter is that, you know, the state did not prove their case. Do I think that there's a high likelihood that OJ did it? Yeah.
I think his son did it. So, but I think he was
I could be convinced of that. I've heard that theory. And I think
it's the blood in the Bronco for me. OJ would have got completely naked, took off his shoes, took out, you know, and then there would be blood on like the floor mat. There'd be blood on the pedal. I mean, there's just no blood.
Yeah.
In that Bronco, which he, you know, supposedly sped in and was all over and then parked it up on the curb. Right. I was just like, okay, where's this blood? And that's just like, and then I started Jamie Maurice, but that's a totally different case. But for this one, I know that you did a case where you and your wife did a pro Vice. That was the Garcia case. Okay. Would you ever do another case where you ever were asked to be, you know, to go to a different state?
I mean, we got pretty hammered on that case. They hated us so much. Allie got removed from the case when she made,
Yeah,
an
that's why I
extra.
went. That's why I said, "Fuck yeah, Allie."
Yeah, no, she was. I mean, she was fighting for her client. What do you want me to read this?
Well, you read it and then re-say it.
Okay,
Is that
so
Allie? Tell Allie I said, "What's up?"
she said, Lana says, "What's up?" You got it. You got a
I
bunch.
want her to advocate for me, so that's why I'm curious
She
if you guys
wa-
would ever do one in a different state.
All right, so Allie typed this little thing out. She says the prosecution is arm of the police. Their cases are only as reliable as law enforcement's investigation. And in the face of recent exposure of widespread systemic police corruption, it's shocking that the default, or so many people, is to trust the prosecution. You see her point there?
Yeah, they're an arm of it, and in order
Right.
to trust the
What
prosecution,
she's saying is that like that distrust that we all kind of have for law enforcement right now should be extending to the prosecution, because that's their right and left hand, which means that everything they're getting is from that corrupt, right and left hand, which means it should be telling you something with respect to the scrutiny that we should be applying to the prosecution of all cases. You know what I mean? And it's like, to
because
me,
it's their decision to go forward, but the prosecution also they had the ultimate. So if I was to be brought something, I would go back and be like, "What the fuck is this? What is the prosecution is basically like a teacher grading a paper to make sure that everything's teased. It makes sense to go forward with something." So she's absolutely correct. I mean, it's
100%.
You got to start somewhere.
And once the train leaves the station, there's no backing that thing in. You know what I mean? Like even if Nick McClellan is like, "Oh my God, like I don't fucking know if this guy did it. I don't want to move forward."
Yeah.
He's got, like, the train has left the station. He's not going to be walking into court anytime ever saying, "You know what? We've dismissed the charges against Rick Allen. We've decided to change course here." Like,
Well, how could they did it in
don't do
Barry Morphew's case? Like, so they arrest Barry Morphew. Colorado went ahead and arrested Barry Morphew, right?
Yep.
And then guess what happened though? He went out and got some badass Jane Fisher and a couple other badass civil attorneys to say that, because the crap that was going on, but they basically said we're dismissing it right now. Not saying that they couldn't bring it back on him.
They did, didn't they?
Didn't
they recharge him? Morphew? Didn't they recently?
No, they found her body, but they haven't recharged him.
Oh, yeah, they've got
But I'm just saying, like, there's a case that they actually walked it back, but I believe it's because of well, again, he had a very at first he had a public defender, but then I think that was only because it was just he needed somebody until he picked who he wanted or whatever.
Right.
But he went and got Jane Fisher and them, and they found all that crap that during the investigation, it was shit going and getting like in his car and in her car.
How far was that into it? Like how long did
I never really covered that case, but off of memory, I want to say it was less than a year that they went ahead and
but Ken Dalton here, he's got the right idea. Like, people just don't take into consideration the amount of money that the state and the government dumps into these cases. That is a major consideration.
I think he's also talking about Morphew having money and being able to go.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know. I could be wrong though.
I mean, but all right,
100 both ways. It's the same,
it definitely goes both ways, because when they spend millions of dollars focusing all their attention on one person, it becomes a real issue to walk it back. You know what I mean? It's like there's just a lot of things going on politically and financially that prohibit them from doing it. Like that Morphew would be one of the few that I could think of. Like,
that's and the only reason is because that pressure that got applied from him going out, because it was about they were about to take down half the police department in violating his rights and shit like that. And so it was going to be a big, it was going to also suppress a bunch of evidence. So it was going to be the fruit of the poisonous tree that was coming into play. But I'm saying that, like, Barry was able to do that because I think he did have money to go out and get that.
Sure. Like private counsel. Yeah.
Yeah. He was also out on bail. Barry Morphew was out on a shit ton of bail money, bond, whatever. And that's unheard of when you're talking about a murder. Like, why did he? But he could be that much involved in his defense privately. And here you have Allen, who, by all accounts, I mean, they're saying that he's been treated like, Hannibal Lecter, whatever,
Right.
at the end of the day, nowhere near able to be involved in his defense the way that obviously Barry Morphew was able to be, involved.
Yeah.
But that's the only case that I've seen in recent where you're talking about somebody charging somebody and then walking it back. And I'm telling you, it was only because of what they were going to be facing, I believe, civilly and what was going to be suppressed.
Exactly. And, I mean, the state knows the strength of their case. You know what I mean? It's like that's always what it boils down to for them in terms of, is it strong enough to move forward? Because there's been plenty of cases where they'll have some evidence, but they don't have the evidence that they need to get it over the hump. You know what I'm saying? And like that's what I'm saying with respect to this, and like going back to what we were talking about half hour ago. Like I really do believe that they went with the felony murder charges, and like
because that's all they could prove.
At that
they
point,
thought that they could prove.
And I really think that they thought that they were going to find some evidence through a celluloid extraction on any of his many, many devices that they recovered. There was going to be a link, because otherwise you have to believe that Rick Allen just went out to the bridge one day with murder on his mind and just happened to run into the girls happenstance and then did all this. To me, that's implausible. Like it's not plausible. Like I just don't think that that's how whoever did this would have operated, and how else does he get him out there unless somebody else drew him out there for him?
Well, you were talking about it. I caught a little bit about it. I don't know if it was last night or a couple nights ago. You're talking about the gun and like the bullet and the ballistics and everything. So I have a question about that. My question is can they use the fact that when they went out and got Ron Logan to try to, remember, everyone's like, oh, Ron Logan. The only time that we hear about this magical bullet appearing is in the Rick Allen probable cause. We don't hear about it in the Ron Logan probable cause, which would be then you would be saying the same thing in order to be able to check his guns. So my question is can they use that as a possible way to show, like, wait a second, if you had that, why wouldn't that be included to look into Ron Logan's guns and test his guns?
I mean, they're certainly going to try to bring it in. Whether or not Gull allows it to come in is an entirely different situation. I mean, that's going to be one of the things that they'll certainly. I mean, yeah, they're going to bring.
Doesn't that just kind of just blow your mind that we're hearing about this magical bullet, not till the Rick Allen probable cause, but if you think about it, it should have been in the probable cause for anybody because it was part of the
crime scene.
Exactly, allegedly, and it's part of however you're going to link somebody there, you're trying to use that. So why wouldn't that have been in Ron Logan's? And I just think that that's something that
I agree.
I would be going hard for right there.
That, and on top of the fact that we know that the chain of custody is non-existent as to that bullet. It's like they made a point in the memo to describe the photographs that they have, the one photograph that they have of that bullet being discovered at that scene, and it's already in somebody's hand.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It's like that's not how a crime scene should be.
Yeah, they don't have the picture of it. They're saying it was in the ground. The next time we saw it, it wasn't like extracting from the ground.
How do we know, right? Without that photographic evidence in a case like this, like those kind of things they're going to hammer on in terms of, like they just don't have the chain of evidence and the chain of custody that we'd expect to understand where they found it and proving it. Even if they had planted it, you would have thought that they would have taken a picture of it in the ground.
I was just expecting it to be in the probable cause. Like when I saw it being in the probable cause of Rick Allen, I was like, wait a second. Why is this not mentioned in Ron Logan's probable cause? Because you want to check his guns as well. That doesn't make to me any sense.
Zero sense.
Especially if that's going to be your smoking gun. That's what's placing him there. And now what I was told, I don't know if you were told this, and I just really, really want to hear about this. Were you ever told that at any point in time during this investigation that they were talking about doing IgG work in this case? Using investigative genealogy because there was DNA at the scene?
I have not heard of them do. I mean, they should be, and like I'm in a very, I love IgG. I love the tool that it can be. It also scares the hell out of me.
Oh yeah, 100.
In the sense that it's such a powerful tool for law enforcement. And when they have access to tools like that, it's going to be abused, and it's going to be abused to our detriment as citizens in this country.
That's what I think is going to come out of the Idaho 4 case.
Exactly. Like I've been saying that exact thing. I'm like, that's the case where it's going to go up to the Supreme Court.
Oh yeah. This is going to be precedent.
No question.
No more Wild Wild West.
No more Wild Wild West, because I think that there is an argument, a valid argument, that I have a reasonable expectation of privacy in a distant cousin's DNA because we share that YSTR strand. You know what I mean? Like, like typically, like I always try to explain it to people, like, say, for instance, if I had gone and robbed a convenience store and I shot the clerk and killed the clerk, and I run over to my buddy's house and, you know, I'm like, oh shit, man, some shit just went down, man. I got to like stash this gun here, blah, 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 blah. I'm going to leave it under your couch. And then I jet. And then 2 days later, the cops find out that I was there. They don't go get a warrant, and they just bust into the guy's house. They find the gun. It's got my DNA on it. The ballistics match, or they find that it's the same caliber. They have video from the store. They can see it's the same. Whatever the case may be, I don't have the ability to go in and try to suppress that particular search because I don't have an expectation of privacy
at his
in my buddy's house. But like so that's always been the argument with respect to the IgG stuff, where they're able to get a connection, a DNA connection from a distant relative of mine on the male line, because we share that DNA, and there's nothing that is more information laden about us personally than our DNA. I mean, you know what I'm saying? And by way of the fact that they share DNA with me, I think that creates an expectation of privacy, wherein I think the burden, and there has to be probable cause in order for them to get a warrant to be able to use IgG. They can't use it because they keep saying it's just an investigative tool.
Fuck that.
Fuck that. You know,
fuck that.
There's just got to be rules.
I went out to Cali to learn about all this shit. I took my time to fucking go because I was that. It's also about procedure. So even if the FBI went ahead and did that in that case, you should have no problem coughing up what lab you used, who you used, 100%. The date, times. How do you think that is not the best line I think that I've ever heard was this? When you think that you could take evidence from a crime scene and hand it over to somebody to then form this tip, you don't hand over evidence from a crime scene to an average citizen for them to form their tip. So how is that forming a tip? No, you were part of the fucking investigation. You were part of it. Like you were 100% discovery. Okay.
100%.
If you think that is not discoverable information, then we have a huge fucking problem coming down our way in this world if that is not going to be considered discovery.
Could not agree more. It's like they're like that whole like
it just pisses me off. That's where I could just
thing. It's like that. It's the most ridiculous argument I've ever heard. I mean, like in beyond that, it's like they should just be saying, where the state should be saying, well, we've got Koberger's DNA at this point. We're not going to even use it, which they are saying. Okay, well, fine. Then just turn over what you have in terms of the data from the IgG, because you're not sweating it, right? I mean, you got his DNA, bro. Like, just let's see what you did here, because they have a right to attack it. You know,
because you have a right to face. Technically, your accusers, and the lab is in a sense accusing that DNA belongs. You know, like that's all.
That was the clincher for them. That connection, that DNA.
That's the only reason they started on him.
Exactly.
But they were, but that didn't even make the probable cause. Which in my mind, then I go, that's how much you needed to hide that you went that route. You weren't even going to disclose that route unless somebody did their due diligence, which Ann Taylor, I give her so much credit, and her team, because I believe that they went hard, just like how Rick Allen's defense went hard at that discovery and saying, no. They didn't get to him because of some way to launch that they were following around. Look at these dates of these reports. We're missing something here. It was, there's DNA even missing. The samples and stuff like that, like how much, like I just think that somebody did their due diligence. Somebody did the what you see in Allen's case. They were doing the same thing. You have zealous people defending you.
You want, like,
absolutely.
That is the standard. That is our ethical duty as defense attorneys. That's what you wish every defendant would get that kind of vigorous, zealous
Yeah.
defense. I mean, unfortunately, it just doesn't happen in a vast majority of cases. It's like my father was a public defender for 14 years, and he's an unbelievable attorney. And there's tons of public defenders that are amazing attorneys, brilliant attorneys. The fact of the matter is their caseload is so huge that they're never going to be able to dedicate the time that a private attorney can obviously allocate to that case, which is always going to be the difference. That's always going to be the advantage to having private counsel over a public defender. Not that lawyers are smarter or that the public defender is appointed by the state and paid by the state. They're not lackeys of the state, far from it. But the fact of the matter is they just don't have the time to allocate to the case that you would want.
That's why I wanted to start a nonprofit. I wanted to start a nonprofit to help public defenders for exactly what you're saying, the research end of it. You don't have time to go through all of that. How do you go through all that discovery? Well, we have a bunch of people out in the world. You believe it now that you've been on YouTube, that they're diggers. They're going to go through stuff. But to use this crowdsourcing as a way to, what the Innocence Project does is it's a totally different scale than what I was saying to help the public defenders because of those caseloads in breaking down the information, the research that goes into it, and then providing that to then a lawyer to then do their job, which lawyer it.
It's huge, man. Like, if this was 6 years ago, I'd be using Sleuthy Goosey. It's my do my digging and putting time. Like I would have hit her up and been like, yo, I need you as my my sideline online private investigator, just putting shit together. And like there's just so many people out there that just dig, and do really, really good work.
They do,
and just spend hundreds of hours digging into shit, and they're doing it just out of their interest in it. Imagine if they've got a vested interest in it.
Imagine with all these vets that they come back, they don't have jobs. Like I think that'd be something also perfect for them.
Amazing. It'd be amazing
to give them jobs. And so it's just interesting because you see it every day on this platform. You see there's so many talented people that even your subs or your members, they can dig and they can find things. They enjoy it. It's their hobby. Well, why not just try to save some lives or get some justice in making sure that the victims, nobody, so it's just
was like, dang, bro, what about Lana? Yeah, you too, girl.
I say it all the time. I'll go up against anybody. I'll go up against anybody in this country when it comes to give me any discovery and I will fucking destroy it. I will tell you what's there. I will tell you what's not there. I will tell you where you might need to find X, Y, and Z. But to ever say I'm a lawyer, fuck no. I never wanted to be a smug motherfucker. But that's why I dig you and Allie, because I'm like, now see, these are my
it's like people are always like, are you really a lawyer? I'm like, yeah, man, I'm just like a real dude, though. It's really like you don't have to turn into a douchebag.
No,
you got a law degree. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, we don't hang out with many lawyer friends. I feel like
I can tell. That's why the only reason I'm going to come to Delphi the next on the boots, I'm gonna be like, all right, Bob, what bar are we going to? Let's see who's could take it back longer.
Let's hang.
Yes. No, I had a case out in Idaho. That's why I was asking if you and your wife would ever consider doing anything again. Pro hack.
Yeah, like
Did you tell
VJ, yes.
I mean, maybe,
and then I got a little something in PA, and I know that don't you rock PA?
Yeah, we're both licensed in PA. When we got out, like Allie's a Philly girl.
Oh yeah, see, I got some up my sleeve for that.
Yeah,
but I want cameras on it. So, and I love the documentary that you guys did the last one. So I was like, can you imagine like a round circle table, me, Allie, Bob, Bella, all in the same room, camera on us, and we'd be like, what the fuck is that? What the fuck?
Yeah.
I was like, people would watch that shit.
Oh, no question, man. I mean, we got people out there. You know what I mean? It's like it's so divided in terms of kind of like, and man, it can get so toxic out there. And I just try to, and it's like I just try to stay above it in terms of kind of diving into that shit. Because I mean, at the end of the day, I think we're all driving towards the same thing. We just have and it mimics life in general in terms of this country. We're just on different sides on how we view things, and it's all about interpretation. And I can't tell somebody to change how they interpret things because, I mean, even if they wanted to, they couldn't, because that's how their brain processes shit. we all take into our own life experiences in terms of how we view things. I like to think that I'm super objective about shit, and it's like I just look at everything from every angle and I dig deep. I never take things at surface level, and a vast majority of people out there love surface level. They don't want to do the deep dig. And to me, and it goes back to what Allison was talking about, in light of the fact that we know how much corruption's involved with law enforcement and how many times they skirt the line, and they're habitual line steppers, and like when we look at that and then have an understanding that they're the hands that the prosecutors have to form their cases, you have to take that into consideration. It's like I always tell people, you got to watch We Own This City, which is David Simon, who had done The Wire. Like that was his 6-parter on Max, where he just dug into the gun trace task force in Baltimore, man, and that rogue outfit. And like at that point in time, the cops were so corrupt.
That actually helped free Anand Syed, I believe.
It did.
Because then Baltimore changed the law. Didn't they put something in place that
they created the statute that allowed the state, because it didn't exist, like unbelievably, that there was a statute that the state could say, we are going to dismiss, or we want to, pull back the conviction. We want, it was that statute that directly came from that case, because there were so many convictions that had to be vacated and the state had no way to do it, because typically it's defense attorneys that are in there trying to get those things vacated. And that was finally, so I loved, like, no matter what people said about Mosby and whatever her motivation was on that, man. I mean, like when that happened, I was like, holy shit, this is amazing.
Oh, with Anand Syed?
Yeah.
Oh, hell yeah.
Because he was done in the process, like he had run his course, like PCRAs were done. He was done,
No, he needed new evidence. That was the only thing that was
and
then they tried to bring it in with what's her name, Alicia McLean, with saying at the library, and
Asia McLean.
Asia, yep. And I just like that was one of the cases that I've always I've talked to Rabia, and I was a huge, and I obviously am a huge advocate for his innocence, the total case flaw against him, and
I've got like I'm like in the I'm in the unenviable position of like, so Bob Ruff's been doing his reply brief to the prosecutors.
He has?
Yeah.
I didn't even know that.
And so, and it's been very heated.
Really?
You've got the pro guilt side and then the pro innocent side. And so like, and he's been firing hard on the prosecutors, like flat out calling them gaslighters and liars. And, so like he wants me to come on and like, I feel like the child in between like two.
You're the referee, man.
Yeah. I mean, like, and it's like, it's one of those.
That's true. Like a divorce case. There you go. You're the child.
So like a divorce case. And it's just like, man, and Syed's one of those cases where, I still don't know. I can obviously see a world in which he's not guilty, that he didn't do that,
Yeah, I don't think he did it.
I can still see.
I want to talk to Don. Get Don out there. I want to talk to the guy that was taking the piss that found the body. Are you kidding me?
That's the guy Allison and I like.
Yeah. Well, how do you walk that far to take a piss? Then you're drinking on the job.
I've been stopping roadsides for my whole life, having to, if I'm like nowhere near a bathroom, and like I don't go.
Have you ever stumbled upon a body?
No, and I don't go 100 yards into the forest to do it. It's like I open the passenger side door and like make a little like temporary bathroom right there. You know what I mean? It's like that whole story to me, and he's like, he's close to work.
That was my next comment is he wasn't that far from work.
Dude, like how bad do you have to piss, bro? Like that whole story just stinks. It's like it's so sus to me. And like I was assuming when like my whole thing where I was kind of bummed out about the way it went down is when they vacated Syed's conviction. I really thought that they were on the precipice of making another arrest, because they talk about the 2 alternate suspects. They talk about the additional DNA that they had found that they were going to be testing. you know, and there's always going to be the counter argument. You know, I mean, look, transfer DNA is it can be had very easily. Like we transfer DNA constantly. So you know, there's always that counter to it. But, you know, so I just thought there was going to be an arrest going to be made, which would have made like all of this go away in terms of the fight as to whether or not he's guilty or innocent. You know what I mean? Like it's that thing. It's that thing that we were just talking about, like where if Alan, you know, gets acquitted, are they ever going to arrest anybody? Probably not. That would have been one of the rare cases where they actually arrested somebody else after the fact. But it was,
or that they were going to are they going to bring him to a new trial? Like,
at this point, no. I mean, depending on what the Supreme Court does in that case, where it currently stands,
is that he's either out or he's going back in?
He's either out or he's going back in. And I don't think that they're going to put him back in. And I don't think, because the way that I read the order when it came down from the Supreme Court was that it was going to, because they wanted to vacate the vacation, right? They wanted to get rid of them vacating the conviction, which makes it scary from Syed's position, is because now there's a different prosecutor in that office. We don't know if he's of the same mindset that Mosby was. And theoretically, the Supreme Court has said, look, we need this thing to go back in front of the judge. We need the state to put on its evidence as to why, on the record, again, another case where they want shit on the record.
Yeah.
Perfect example of Delphi. We want it all on the record. It needs to be there on the record. We want your rationale and your reasoning behind why you're seeking it. It just can't be in the form of you know, we want witnesses up there. We want a full hearing. And the question becomes, she had dismissed the charges because there were two parts to it, right?
That's right. Yeah,
there were not only that meant that they weren't going to trial. There was no, we're going back to trial. We're going to give you a new trial. So I mean, in theory, if they whitewash all of that, in theory, he could have to go back to trial. Now, do I think that they're more likely than not will be a different result? Yeah, I do, because I think a lot of the evidence is going to be inadmissible in terms of the phone coverage and like what they call geofencing.
Oh, that was so bad. That was so bad.
Yeah, you know, so it's like, but yeah, that case is a mess. And you know, and I really, in that one, I blame the defense in the sense that if dude's asking for 7 days after Syed's been in there for 2 decades, I'm giving him the fucking 7 days so that the guy can get here and appear in person. Because if that had happened, none of this is taking place. That's all he asked for. Like his, you know, Hayes' brother wanted 7 days to make arrangements to show up at the hearing. Had they given him the 7 days, which is all they asked for in terms of a continuance, none of this goes down.
Why do you think that they didn't allow? Like, what are you thinking? Like, why wouldn't you?
If
that was going to be my comment. Is the only thing that where this got so wrong is why aren't people including the victims' families and things? Like, God, what is wrong with you,
dude? It's insane. Like
what are you thinking?
In the state, like just kind of dropping the bomb on them, like.
Because I don't think that was right. I don't.
I agree.
But that doesn't mean that I don't think Syed's guilty.
Exactly.
You know, exactly. I think that what happened to you was, and see, but I think this goes with the whole, like, if you go full circle with it, do you see how the state operates yet? You get what I'm saying? Like, this is even proving that here you're the victim's family, and this is what they did to you. Now here there's a guy that's
tell you that we're right. Like we told you for 20 plus years that we had the right guy. And we're not going to give you the courtesy of giving you a warning for the last year that they were investigating it. Like they should have called at any point and talked to the family and said, hey, we just want to give you a heads up. We're relooking into this case. We see some real problems with it. And we're leaning towards potentially vacating that conviction because we've come to the conclusion that we don't think that he's the right guy, or at the very least, that it was a fair trial. One of those two exists. So you let the family know that. They don't do that. They wait until a couple of days before this thing all goes down. They give this guy no notice. He can't get there. And what I'm saying is, if I'm Syed's lawyer, or if I'm Adnan Syed, I'm looking to my lawyer and say, dude, I don't give a fuck. I will wait 7 days if that means that this thing's going to be done right. Yeah. Let dude get here. Dude get here. You know, and for me, that was like, we're not here had that happened, you know.
Yeah,
it's that simple.
Yeah, 100. 100. And I think that you could, what's logic to me is that if I'm a logical person, I think the state screwed them, but that doesn't mean that I don't feel that he should be not out. I just think that, hey, again, the state just, what the fuck are y'all doing?
Right.
I just can't. But I appreciate you coming on here. I would love to talk to you more off camera about a couple things. So
sure.
I'll reach out.
Yeah,
but
like, don't be shy.
Oh, I won't.
Yeah.
Shit, you don't gotta even say that.
All right, good. 'Cause, yeah, I'm here.
I'm a stalker, man. I'm gonna come fucking find your ass.
I love that. I'm super easy to find. I'm out in these streets. You know what I mean?
I want to leave on one note here. If you were to predict the future here, what's the next play you see by Alan's team?
Well,
you can even put yourself into that.
Do you wait? Like, I think all they're doing is waiting for the opinion to come down just to see the way the court is going to rule on certain things in terms of their rationale. Like, because if I'm them, I'm filing the 70-day. I'm pushing the trial date back up. I agree with you. I think that this did give Nick more time to prep. How much time he actually spent on doing it, I don't know. Like, if he was of the mindset that it was going to be Scrumming and Libredo moving forward, he probably thought his case got a lot easier.
100.
You know what I'm saying? So I don't know how much he dug in and like how much he was prepping the case for trial, because he now thinks or thought that it was going to be pushed until October, which in reality was going to be pushed again because Libredo and Scrumming weren't going to be ready in 12 months or 11 months to go to trial. They would have asked for another continuance. So he thought he had all the time in the world. So in terms of that strategy, I'm still moving forward with it, because if they're ready to try the case, they're ready to try the case.
And I think they are.
I do too.
100.
And if you're, and if you're of the mindset, because the more time you give law enforcement to dig shit up, they're going to dig shit up. Like, that's just facts. Like, my one regret in terms of Garcia is, like, we should have, because we obviously had the exact same conversation. Do we force this thing to trial? And that case spanned really 14 years, and there was a 5-year gap in between homicides, and there was a massive amount of discovery, and we were plowing through it. And we have that conversation. We're like, God, did we do a speedy demand on this? And when we didn't, it ended up like they pulled so much shit out of their ass, like post arrest on that case. It was unbelievable, where they would have had none of that had we gone to speedy. But it's such a scary proposition in terms of being a defense counsel too, because that's what I'm saying. It's like, you're not only getting the state with their pants down, you're also not having the time to prepare as much as you might want to prepare as well. But like, I think these dudes are ready. Like, I think they're ready to move on it. And I think that the state I think that they believe the state has a shit case. They know what the hiccups are. They know that Rick made these alleged confessions, and we're all going to hear them. And I think that there's a reasonable explanation for them.
100.
People just don't get what it's like in prison, yo.
Yeah.
If you like guards and inmates don't give a shit about the presumption of innocence. I say it all the time. On repeat all the time. If you don't think that guards are always trying to squeeze confessions out of defendants that haven't confessed in cases that they know that they want closed, especially involving young girls or young children, you're nuts. They're always doing that. It's the same way that they put, they'll put like a undercover in a jail cell with a guy and try to get him talking, and the dude will be in there for weeks, and he's an undercover cop. And he's in there trying to get the guy to talk. It's like they do that shit all the time. They're always trying to extract a confession out of them, whether it's coerced or not. You get that situation where, and we know for a fact, Richard Allen was not walking around in Gen Pop. Oh, I'm going to go call Kathy, picking up the phone. Hey, what's up, girl?
Yeah. Hey, by the way.
Right. This is a situation. He's in custody. He's in SAG 23 hours a day. Whenever he's getting a phone call, he's got one of these giant neo-Nazi dudes standing right next to him.
With patches, tattoos. Now
I don't know. It's like people the whole thing. I'm just ready for it to go to trial.
Did you see that March 17th or March 30th, 2017 article? Have you ever seen that?
I don't know. Send it to me. Maybe. What's it about?
Here, I'll just, I'm going to just change my screen to share it really quick. I had it up here earlier, but there you go. It's all the stuff that came out. See how it says published March 30th, 2017. Right there.
I have not seen it.
Okay, so check this out. Guess who's all up in it? It's all about this, everything that's in this Frank's written motion here. When you go on, you scroll all the way down, you start getting into the likes of Messier's in here, and then Patrick Westfall. And I was just looking at the dates. So right here, see, Patrick Westfall. So something that was interesting though to me is that they were doing all of this, and I'll send you the article so you can just read it yourself.
Yeah.
But something that I thought was interesting was the date of it all, and it's called Behind the American Guard, Hardcore White Supremacists. But this date right here, it was published March 30th, 2017, and that was, I mean, now do your math on. So this was out there
a month and change after the thing went down. Man.
Yes. And so here, this is happening. And this is what, when you want to talk about the investigation, it's like, this is right in front of your faces.
I know. Well,
so
I mean,
I'm going to send this to you.
Click Ferenczi and Murphy. We're all about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like I was on Teresa's live last night. And I just kept,
that's good. I love Teresa.
She's so great, man. And I'm like, yo, how are people just pretending like the Elvis Fields confession shit does not exist in the world? I don't give a shit what his IQ is.
No.
It's like, how are you pretending it doesn't exist in the world? Like, why are we pretending that
his sisters don't exist? like what?
I mean, they took Polly's, or one of them took Polly's to, like, if it was true what she was saying that he said to her was true, and it came back that she wore those.
And the same people that say Polly's are so awesome, now they're like, what? Huh? What?
That's a polygraph. That's some bullshit. You can't listen to that shit. Hey, Mod Squad, I see you. Like, we're working on it. I've gotten.
Oh yeah, Mod Squad. Yeah, she's the best.
Yeah, she's hammering on me for a Garcia episode. Yeah, well, they're
guess how I found out about that. I didn't even know. I had to find out about. I'm so mad at you, Bob. I was watching Dateline, and I saw the Dateline.
Yeah.
And I saw the Dateline episode, and I was like, "See, this is why I like these fuckers." You know?
It's
like, in that. I think you guys had, like, I don't know if it was Airbnb or if it was a apartment, but sitting in there, and I was like, yeah, see, that's what I need over in PA with one of my cases, in Idaho with one of my other cases, and then it's not Idaho 4.
Hit me up.
I will suffer the PA one because I got all the goods.
It's a real one. All right. Yeah, definitely hit me up on that.
Yeah, it's worth your time.
Yeah, cool. All right. Awesome.
All right. Well, I will be in touch. Thank you so much for popping on here, and tell Ellie, sorry that I just snatched you up.
No worries. She's back at it anyway over there, like in the zone already. So no, thank you so much for having me. It was awesome. Yeah, absolutely. It will be the first of many, I'm sure. And thank you to all y'all out there that are hanging with us. And you know, the chat was great. Like, I was trying to keep an eye on it, and you guys are amazing. So thank you so much for hanging with us. I appreciate it.
Thank you. All right, guys, you guys rock. We'll be back tonight at 10. I got this Idaho scandal with the volleyball team. I'm going to talk about it. And I got the letter from none other than right here, your boy, Scott Coomer Green. I got his letter to the alumni, and I'm going to share all of that with you guys right here. So Coomer Scott Green's letter to the alumni in regards to the volleyball scandal. So again, you guys didn't even know it, but I went to the University of Idaho. Just kidding. Be kind to one another. We'll see you back here tonight at 10 p.m. Eastern Standard.